I'd arrived, I'd done it myself from Manchester with no help at the age of 22, whatever it was. I proudly knocked on the door, expecting to be treated like a hero, welcomed. They didn't have to come and meet me at the airport, nothing. And the door didn't open. I decided to learn Russian back in 1990 because I wanted to do something more exotic than French and German. I figured that Arabs don't drink, Chinese culture was a bit too much for me perhaps, and that Russian girls were pretty hot and vodka definitely was on the agenda. So that was really the reason I decided to start working for MI6, allegedly, and learn Russian. My first trip to Russia was in 1991, 1 month before the attempted coup, and I'm not saying that I'm involved in that, but that was the timing. And I joined a language course which cost $300 plus travel, which included all the lessons and accommodation and food with a local family. And I was pretty broke, and I had to get to Moscow, and then I had a job teaching English with the Moonies in Bulgaria for a month, and then I was going to Munich to earn some money. If I'd flown from Manchester to Moscow, it would have cost me about $300, so I'd have had no money for the summer. So I thought it would be cool to hitchhike. So I hitchhiked from Manchester, destination Moscow. I did quite well. I got to Warsaw. I met some great people. They put me up, they gave me food. And when I was in Warsaw, I thought, I can take a train to Brest in Belarus, which will cost me about $3, and then a 24-hour train from Brest to Moscow for $1, because the Soviet Union was really, really cheap back then. I got to the train station, and there were literally people hanging out of every single door with rucksacks on their heads. There was no way I was going to get on that train. And so ultimately, I decided to fly from Warsaw to Sheremetyevo in Moscow, which cost me $90. So I now had $210 left. And I arrived in Sheremetyevo and I thought, I'm staying with the family for a month. I could call them, but then they would have to come all the way out to the airport to meet me, and that's really, really inconvenient. Or I could just turn up. They know I'm coming. And how cool would it be to come to the Soviet Union with just an address in Moscow, and the triumph of just knocking on that door, the warm welcome of love and affection of Anglichanin, as they call them, arriving. Amazing. And I took the bus, I think it was number 550 from memory, to the first metro station, and I had a massive map of Moscow. It was huge. I found my street. The metro station was at number 2 of that street, and my apartment building was at 62. And what I didn't realize then was that every number was an entire apartment building, interspersed by about 20 meters of like land, and then number 4 was over here. So I actually walked for about 2.5 kilometers once I got there. But finally, about 8:30 at night, I arrived at number 62. Now, I was so proud of myself that I'd managed to come to the Soviet Union and find the place. And it was a huge building of 500 apartments. I got in the lift, which smelt of urine. I got to the 5th floor. I got to apartment number 492. I'd arrived, I'd done it myself from Manchester with no help at the age of 22, whatever it was. I proudly knocked on the door, expecting to be treated like a hero, welcomed. They didn't have to come and meet me at the airport, nothing. And the door didn't open. A voice said, "Kto tam?" which in Russian means, "Who's there?" And I answered, I said, "Меня зовут Paul Bradbury, я англичанин," which is like, my name's Paul Bradbury, I'm English. And I got this volley of abuse. So I knocked again and I tried, "Kto tam?" Меня зовут Paul Bradbury, я англичанин. And the door wasn't opening, so I went downstairs, and there was a bunch of babushkas sitting on the bench and looking at me like I'm really, really strange, because I've never seen a foreigner in this part of Moscow ever. And I explained in my really, really bad Russian who I was and could I use their telephone. So I called the number, and the same voice opened and said, "Kto tam?" Меня зовут Paul Bradbury. They put the phone down. There was an emergency number of the school. I called that, and as you would expect from an emergency number in the Soviet Union, nobody answered. And it was now about 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening. I had nowhere to stay, I had no one to talk to, I had no one to contact. But I had a tent, And I thought, what the hell? So there was a communal area where the kindergarten was and stuff like that. And I just got my tent out and I put my tent up, and all these babushkas on the benches looking at this, the first foreigner they'd ever seen probably. And I just said, Spokojnej noci, which is like good night. And I got into my tent. I thought, I'll sleep here and in the morning I'll figure it out. And about half an hour later, I heard a voice. Englishman in the tent, are you there? And I said, it's the KGB coming to take me away, and that's the end of it. And I said, oh, hello. And he said, my name is Timur. I am the son of the people you're staying with, but you're not coming for another month. I said, no, I'm here. Trust me, I'm here. And there was a bureaucratic mix-up. They were expecting me like a month later. And so he said, come now. So I came into the apartment, and the voice behind the door was the 84-year-old grandfather. And he was given strict instructions, unless you know the person you're speaking to, never open the door. And he was so embarrassed that this guest from England had been refused entry that he became my best friend for ages. Welcome to the Soviet Union.